The following is a short essay, meaning an attempt to outline how I currently view what happened at the Countess of Chester Hospital from 2015 onwards. It will have many missing parts and missing or unclear analysis, and no doubt many errors or inexactitudes and many misunderstandings. Some of it may be almost right but not quite. Some of it is supposition. That notwithstanding, it is just an attempt to concentrate and lay out the main aspects of this blatant persecution of an innocent nurse into an approximate framing. It begins like this. Certain deaths and collapses on a neonatal unit are allegedly deemed unexpected and unexplained. Or there is the pretence of this assertion for reasons that serve the person or people deeming these deaths and collapses unexpected and unexplained. Who is determining this unexpectedness and this inexplicability? It starts with one person and 3 deaths in a month, and then increases to a small, tight group of confederates who encourage each other, finding new cases, both en route and in retrospect, that allegedly meet the criteria unexpected and unexplained. Nearly all of the cases they find or seek out happen to occur when a certain nurse is on duty. A nurse that does more hours, more shifts than any other. As time progresses, as the excitement builds in the group, do they find new cases of concern because a particular nurse is on duty? Are they deeming these cases inexplicable and unexpected because the particular nurse is on duty? Yes. That is what their agenda becomes, nothing but this. This is what it resolves to achieve, not finding a link, not discovering it, but creating it, ensuring it, by means of their choices of deaths and collapses which they apparently deem inexplicable and unexpected. Their group project is to collate any death or collapse that they can either pretend not to explain or do not have the skill or knowledge to explain, or some of both of those failings, but for the presence of a particular nurse when the death or collapse occurs. Presence in this context means simply being on shift, or having been on shift quite recently, or just about to start a shift. It need demonstrate nothing as to proximity to or involvement with any particular baby. Within the group and within its members, there is a foundational motivation to consider some deaths and collapses unexpected and unexplained, so as to move the responsibility for these events away from the people who either could explain them but choose not to, as it would look bad on their own medical practice and or the practice of their medical colleagues and or the environment of the unit and its general management, one might say mismanagement. Or in some cases it may be that they simply do not have the knowledge or skill to explain these deaths and collapses in order to judge their expectedness or unexpectedness, their explicability or inexplicability. There may be certain incidences where there is a mixture of deliberate unwillingness to explain or hypothesize/diagnose certain deaths and collapses, as to do so may reflect badly on self and or other medical colleagues and or the running and safety of the unit as a whole. And this, in conjunction with not having the knowledge or skill to hypothesize/diagnose correctly what caused or likely caused the death or collapse. The group will also grow determined to ignore all post-mortem findings regarding deaths that they, the group, consider suspicious, and to ignore the findings of external bodies and individual medical reviewers of each of the deaths. Their suspicions and alleged inability to explain the deaths must trump everything and everyone else. The group leader attempts to have a particular nurse removed from the neonatal unit without any evidence. This is denied. The leader and his core group create a toxic environment for the nurse that they have focused on, spreading vicious gossip that leads to explicit accusations of murder by some medical staff against the nurse. The group hold the management to ransom. It's her or us. And the management cave in and remove the nurse. The nurse takes out a grievance and wins, and the group members are made to apologise to her under duress. They are now bent on vengeance and retribution against the nurse. They attempt to get the police involved, but this is not successful at first. There is no evidence of any crime. Some of the group's number lie to the police to get them involved. All are implicitly party to the lie. They all then lie by omission in statements to the police and later in court, and some lie by commission, perverting the course of justice and committing perjury. Deaths and collapses which are allegedly of concern to the doctors as being suspicious are collated and passed on to the police, who then allow a sole alleged expert to assess these cases and potentially find others. We are told that he was not informed as to the cases that had already been deemed unexpected and unexplained and thereby suspicious by the group of doctors. There is good reason to doubt this. We are told that he, the alleged expert, did not know who the doctors were suspicious of in respect of causing deliberate harm, and thereby who the police were suspicious of, and there is good reason to doubt this. The alleged expert is sent medical notes for all the deaths, but only for a limited time frame. He is sent notes relevant to a subset of collapses chosen by the doctors. Some collapses that fall outside the artificially chosen time period are deemed irrelevant by police and also by the expert and by the doctors because the nurse they by now all suspect was either not on duty or had been removed from the neonatal unit. Many other collapses across what might be called the indictment period were never formally recorded or passed on for assessment by either the police or the alleged expert. The group of doctors alone are given the power to decide what is and what isn't a collapse, and further, what is or isn't an unexpected and unexplained collapse. No one challenges this. No one knows how many collapses, explicable or otherwise, occurred during the indictment period or in the period before or after it. The expert echoes the concern for deliberate harm in respect of some of the deaths and collapses the doctors are allegedly concerned about, but not all of them. And he also adds further cases which should be thought of as suspicious for deliberate harm. The expert goes further than suspicion. He is adamant that deliberate harm has been caused. He is able to do this in one case in only 10 minutes. Some of the expert's choices for events that are deemed inexplicable, other than due to deliberate harm, later have to be dropped because the nurse whom the doctors and now the police are suspicious of was not on duty. What does this tell us? It tells us that the expert, the alleged expert, the police and the doctors are only interested in allegedly suspicious or inexplicable events when a certain nurse is on duty, the person they now all suspect, rather than when alleged suspicious or inexplicable events occur per se. Some of the doctor's original choices for events that were deemed allegedly inexplicable, other than due to deliberate harm, have later to be dropped because the nurse, the doctors, and now the expert and the police are suspicious of, was not on duty. What does this tell us? It tells us that the doctors, the alleged expert, and the police are only interested in allegedly suspicious or inexplicable events when a certain nurse is on duty, the nurse they now all suspect or pretend to suspect, rather than when allegedly suspicious or inexplicable events occur per se. And so, deaths and collapses that were deemed initially unexpected and inexplicable but for deliberate harm can be tacitly accepted as expected and explicable, or simply no more is said or thought about them, thereby being reduced to some nondescriptive state, if they cannot be fitted to the rota sheet of a particular nurse. So what does this mean? Number one, it means the shift chart shown to the jury with all the X's representing alleged, suspicious and inexplicable events, but for deliberate harm, that align to the column of a certain nurse's name, is a fraud, is a lie, is a deception. 2. And therefore it doesn't matter how many deaths or collapses the nurse in question was present at, which were later deemed suspicious for deliberate harm, then asserted as definite deliberate harm, because the notion of ascribing deliberate harm to these events is predicated uniquely on the need to match them to the shift rota for the nurse in question. If this nurse is not on duty, a previously thought suspicious event is let go, dropped, as it would threaten the whole edifice of the joint enterprise fraud being constructed, and any newly discovered suspicious events have to meet an indispensable criterion, not one related to or based on medical or logical argument, or reliant on any direct or indeed any circumstantial evidence whatsoever, but wholly and solely based on whether a particular nurse is on duty. And that is how you construct the fraud and the great lie that underpins the persecution of Lucy Letby, chillingly illustrated and exemplified by the shift chart that misled the families, the jury, the media, and the public.